So what's up, everybody? How are you doing? I got really good news. We got Mastermind back on. This song actually that you're looking at right now is a song from our Mastermind program. You know, we recorded this one with Bob Horn in Signature Sound here in San Diego. With Mayfield, a band that came, I think they're from LA, great band. And, you know, we had a recording there, and then we went ahead and also did the mixing with Bob Horn. So we have all that available at ProCLive.com. And it turns out that this is what we're mixing this month for Mastermind. If you're curious about Mastermind, you're going to hear me talk about it throughout this segment. It's a course that we do. The link is on the description. We download and we work on a song each month. So each week we have different assignments, and we have a classroom. We all work together, help each other out, and it's a really cool way to learn. You know, it's a unique experience to be mixing a song together with other people. Apart from the because there are the competitions that we do. I want to make another one soon. Those are really fun. Yeah, but I got this mix. I'm almost done with it. I want to go through a few things, the last things that I've made with you guys, just kind of share some tips. Last thing that I did, I believe I put a compression on the master bus, and it's a really subtle thing. It's this guy right here. It's from the V series from Waves, and it sounds, can't really hear it too much. Here, I'm gonna play the chorus. I see that there's people logging in. What's up, guys? Here, let's play the chorus and see what this compressor is actually doing.
Paranoia was, paranoia did what we swore it never done. He said I'm going crazy, but Lord I know, just the voices in my mind.
It seems like it makes my snare pop just a little bit more, and I like that. And not too much, but yeah, a little bit more. And it also just kind of makes it sound more exciting. And I'm using very little bit amount of distortion, which is hard to do with these, you know. If I were to, and why not? Although I already did this, what I like to do for demonstration sometimes is kind of like save this and turn it off and go at it again. So when you open this guy, and this is part of the reason why I didn't get how to use it. This one's kind of weird. It's based on a Neve compressor. I have it on Safari if I am not mistaken. Here it is. All right, so it's based on this one, and it's actually pretty cool that you can tell because you got, you know, your compression ratios from 1.5 to 1 to 6 to 1. You got your threshold. You got your compressed recovery, which is the release time. And you got, you know, 400 milliseconds, 800, 1.5, and automatic. Limit recovery, this is for the limiter. So it has a limiter section as well. And then, you know, you can use them either or. I don't know if you can use both of them together. I didn't know that. But so that's the one that it's based on. So it's a Neve 2254. So if we go back to Pro Tools, we kind of the same thing where we have our ratio here, just the way you saw it, the same values. We got the same, now this says release, where before it used to say compress recovery. Now it says release. And yeah, we have our switches here for compression and for limiting, and you can turn both at the same time. I didn't know that. So it's the same design, just slightly different. So when you basically open it, what's up, Marcia? Good to see you, man. I hope you're doing fine wherever you are. Hope to see you at the NAMM show. We're gonna get over there. But yeah, I was going with the chorus. Yeah, I'm gonna play this, and this is the way it opens up. It's probably gonna be overcompressed.
Well, paranoia is a paranoia was, paranoia.
Yeah, so what do I do with that, you know? And I didn't know how to use this at the beginning, and you know, just got to realize you got to look at what's going on. You know, you're compressing more than 6 dB, of course, on the master channel. That might not be very good. So what do? We are going to turn the ratio down. That's the first thing we're going to do. Now, this one might not be more apparent, but since the release time is on automatic, when it doesn't, you can't tell when it stops compressing that easily. Check this out. A faster release is just going to also mean that the needle moves faster. I'm just going to take advantage of that so that I can find a good, just kind of like a good place where I'm, you know, reducing less than 3 dB, and then I'm going to change the release time to something that sounds more musical. So now we got to play with the input. This is going to tell how much compression we're getting. We don't have a threshold here. A lot of compressors work differently. This is one of those that it has a fixed threshold. You have to actually mess with the input. And and by making the input less, you know, it's not going to hit the threshold that hard. Another good example of this design is the 1176. So let's go at it. Let's turn the volume down until we're not getting that much dB of compression. Maybe like 2 at the most. Let's try something around there. I'm getting 2. And yeah, I turned the volume way down, and it seems like it's weird, but this is how you use this guy in particular if you want to use it on your master channel. Let's see. Let's check it out. What I'm gonna do now is I'm going to compensate for the gain, you know, because I turned the volume down a lot, so I'm gonna bring it back up. Now I can put the release back on auto mode. I think it's gonna sound more pleasant. I can even turn it down a little more if I think that's too much compression. And I had one that I did before. I wonder how they sound like, you know, in series, you know, one after the other. The settings, let's see, they're slightly identical. I'm kind of surprised. Look at me. I'd keep only one on, honestly. No, I wouldn't put both of them on. But, you know, I wanted to see what it sounded like with both. Yeah, well, that's one of the last things that I did with this session. As you can see, I edited it to a point where it was, you know, a little exaggerated. I can play it for you. See if you like it. I don't always do this, and you know, I was just going through examples of different things that we do as far as noise editing. So, you know, this song, by people who are just joining us live, this song we're mixing for our mastermind program. So our mastermind program, we mix a new song each month. And, you know, we go live every week and we talk about the mix and how we're doing, and we have different assignments each week. We have a lot of fun. But anyway, we also have a new skill that we learn every week. You know, we concentrate on something new. And the new skill for this past week was noise editing. And, you know, obviously went through like more traditional examples, like, you know, taking out breaths and things like that. And clicks and things and noises and hums from the electric guitars, and just things to be careful of. You know, there's also headphone bleed when the vocalist is not singing, things like that sometimes we take care of. Sometimes we are more, you know, careful about. And, you know, click bleeding through on acoustic guitars is obviously something that's a problem. I mean, you know, we were talking about those things, but we're also going into, like, you know, some more creative uses, and this one's an example. I really like this, and you don't hear it much because it was played actually pretty well, but it definitely is there. If I were to drag this back, it'd sound different. I think that there's something that I ate here. I wanted to check that out. So if I go back, yeah, let's see. I think I ate something. Let's check it out. Is there music? Oh yeah, there's some guitars here. There's this function, I don't know if people know it. If you select over like a cut that you did and you want to like patch it back together, Command H is going to heal it. So if all it was a cut like this, and then there's nothing really, it's going to sound the same, but, you know, just to keep things more organized, you know, might as well put a little band-aid on that. So that would sound. Yeah, and there's a part where it sounds pretty cool. There's like a cool bridge area, and I also did it very drastically. Yeah, and it depends how clean you want to get with stuff. Obviously, this is a style. It doesn't work with every kind of, song, but this is how you get certain sounds. These some certain bands like Linkin Park get their stuff sounding so straight and so perfect. It's not that there are really good musicians, but when you see them live, it doesn't have that specific quality because this is obviously edited. And I've seen even guitarists go as far as like play a chord and then get punched in, they'll play that chord until it rings out, and then they'll go to the next position and play that chord, so you don't hear the finger change, and that's part of like going in this route and being very edity. But just thought this is really cool, kind of particular about this mix. Yeah. So I have a really good one for the kick drum. If you guys want to hear it, let me know, because we did a session with. We've done a lot of sessions on Pro Studio Live. You check Pro Studio Live, there's all kinds of stuff. But the session I'm talking about is the one with Steve Albini. He came to the studio. He does all analog, so we had to get a tape machine for that day, and it was the first time we had a tape machine that I saw in that studio. So going through how to use it and everything, and he showed us this really cool EQ trick. And it's, if you want to see it, I'll show it to you. It's kind of what do you call it? I think he called it a resonant EQ, and it works really well on lower frequency instruments, especially the kick. Yeah. So yeah, no, I mean, I'll show it to you. Why not? So we got the kick right here, and let's see what's going on. Let me remove this group, and let's hear the kick by itself with nothing added. This is, well, the compressor and whatever. All right. I'm going to show you what's going on. That's a good kick, man. We got a compressor right here. Sounds a little more exaggerated when I turn the compression on. It's just kind of cool. And I have a little bit of EQ, just boosting the high end, just so it pops through the mix. It's just one of those things that you do while listening to everything. And you listen to the whole mix, and you put this guy there, and you find the frequency, and you pull it up until you can hear it, Obviously not too much, but just enough that it sounds sweet. But that's all that you're hearing processing-wise. And now I'm going to get to the cool part. So check this out. We're going to create a resonant EQ, and you're going to see what that means. We're going to create an auxiliary, and it's down here, and we're going to send the signal from the kick drum. Follow me as we're going to send it, making a send right here. We're sending it pre-fader, so whatever we do on this fader doesn't matter. It's going to send it in the same level. You got to do that, or else it's not going to work well. Pre-fader, it's being sent to our aux track, mono aux track that we just made. And on that track, we're going to make an EQ. It's this guy. And I put it around a frequency that sounded good to me. It was 45 hertz, more or less. I'm going to turn this guy off. And since it's in pre-fader, this end, I can mute the original kick, and you'll still be able to hear this guy. And I'm not done with the magic. I'm going instead so I can guide you through what's going on. And this was showed to me by Steve Albini on an analog console. This is my digital version of it, but I think it gets the point across, and it gives an interesting result, especially for this example right here. So let me play what this is doing. And you're just hearing the EQ right now. So filtering everything and just leaving that makes the speaker move, in those low frequencies. So if we combine that with the original sound, we got this. So that's a good boost. But this isn't a resonant EQ yet. This is, so far, what you're looking at is parallel EQ. If you've never seen parallel EQ, this is what it looks like. Yeah. You're just really opening another channel and only filtering and leaving out only the frequencies that you want to hear more, and then adding that back in, as you're mixing. So that's what we have right now. So where does the resonant part is right here. We're going to make a send, and this sounds a little nuts, but we're doing a send from the EQ'd version, and it's sending it back onto itself. Yep. it's going to be sending it back into the input of this track. So it's going to get combined with what's coming in here from the kick. So you're creating a feedback loop. And it's one of those things that when you're setting it up, you do have to be careful because it can go overboard and you're going to get, feedback. It's going to escalate up to infinity and you can crash Pro Tools. I hope it doesn't crash Pro Tools. I like that not to happen more than when it happens. But it's usually when you go above zero that starts to be a problem. Before that, you're going to get a resonance because it's going to, the signal is going to be EQ'd and then it's going to be sent back onto itself. It's going to be re-EQ'd, which might not do much, but then it's going to pass through and go again. But each time it's going to be leveling down in energy because the send is going to be below zero. If it's above zero, each time it passes through the circuit, it's getting amped up more and more until it becomes a problem. But below zero, each time it passes through the send, it passes a smaller version of itself until it gradually dies down. So it's going to allow us to get more sustain. Let's just hear that and see what that does. So I'm going to turn this down to zero and gradually turn it up, and you're going to be able to hear something really cool. I'm not hearing anything. Are you? No, I'm not. Let me figure out why. Do we have this engaged? Yeah, we do. All right. Yeah, let's do that again. All right, we're getting the feedback there. All right, good. All right, that's obviously exaggerated. That sounds like one of those 808 kind of things. That's an exaggeration of the effect that you're trying to get. You're trying to get more sustain out of it. Obviously, this is so much sustain that you never get the bass to die down between each note. You're not giving any space for the rest of the instruments. You obviously don't want that. You want to dial it back and down. So that's what I'm going to do. And this goes back to something that I learned a long time ago. I was in a band and one of our producers, I would ask him audio questions and he told me once that sometimes when you hear a particular note and it sounds like it has a lot of bass depth into it, sometimes it's not because there was EQ boosted on it, but it also has to do with the length of the note. If you have a longer note, you perceive it as it having more bass, obviously in a certain frequency. But when it comes to things like a kick drum, if the kick drum is longer, the sound of it is a bit longer, you're going to hear like it has more low end to it. And that's partially what we do with compression sometimes, since, we have our attack and we can exaggerate that, but we're also dealing a lot with how the drum, releases. And, when we're using compressors, sometimes we're making the note just last out a little longer. And that little bit more length just sounds a little heavier and it just adds a little bit more meat. And it gives you the impression that the instrument has more low end than it does, just because the note is lasting a bit longer. So that's essentially what's going on here with the kick drum. Just by giving it this, it's immediately going to have a little bit more of a perception that it has more low end, just because it's lasting longer. Now, I am adding some, EQ that is playing at the same time with each hit, and I could control that as well here. That's actually a good idea. That went too far. But something over there, and if I were too concerned with that I'm adding too much low end when the kick drum is hitting, I could always, I could play with the gate. And right now I don't want to do it because this would be like, getting pretty techy, but, totally valid. If you don't want that initial attack of low end, you can shave it off and that is no problem. You have your attack set at maybe 5 milliseconds, and then you have your release kind of fast. And this way, it's gonna allow for that. It's you're not gonna hear the 45 kilohertz boost when the kick drum is hitting, but it's gonna open it up so that you hear the sustain of it. And obviously, I don't want this to take too long. Let's see what this is like. Obviously, I don't want to take more time and look at it, but in theory, that's what I would be doing. Was there only a single mic inside the kick or an outside or sub kick as well? I believe in this session. That's a great question, Samuel. You popped in a bit. Yeah, so this is a song that we're mixing on our mastermind group. We mix a new song each month, and in this particular one, I think I'm not using the other kick drum microphone. I want to see if I deleted it. No, it's here. Somehow I just thought I didn't need it. And it's obviously moved in time. Let's see. Yeah, it wasn't that flattering to me. And this one, no, this is just a kick drum, and it's a condenser microphone. If you're curious about how it was recorded, I know in ProStudioLive.com we have the session. If you already have a subscription, if you don't, there's a 7-day free trial, so you can, you do have to put your credit card. I'm not gonna lie, but if you log out before the 7 days, I mean, it's free. But it's only $9.99 a month, and there's one by Bob Horn, and he's gonna talk about how he did it. But this is just if I play just the microphone by itself, it's really cool. So if I take off the processing on the kick drum, and you just hear this condenser mic, it sounds amazing. And it sounds clean. Like, you hear the snare bleed through, but it's just at a very nice volume compared to the kick. It's just a very healthy level. And then I put a compressor on it. And then this little bit of a boost on the top end. And then by mixing that with the resonant EQ that I just added, which is at a center frequency around 45 kilohertz, and it's being sent onto itself on a loop. Each time it sends itself, the signal gets weaker, so it doesn't, feed back into loudness, but it gives a little bit more of a sustain. And sometimes if you have a kick drum that was just recorded with not enough bass, probably the wrong microphone or something, this could be a technique that you could try out that could really save you, because not only are you gonna add a low end to the kick, but you're also gonna add sustain to that low end that did not exist before. And this is another tip that I learned from Pro Studio Live. I mean, I'm not making this up. I learned this from the best. Honestly, I learned this from Steve Albini when he came over here and showed us how to do it. Bob is a super buddy. Yeah, he's great. Bob is a buddy, super wise at mixing. Awesome. No, yeah, I learned a lot about from him, and it's really nice to hear from him, because he sometimes, the mixes that I've seen, he uses a lot of plugins on his tracks, and each single one, and he'll go through it and tell you why he did it and play you with it and without, and you'll be agreeing to each one, and he'll guide you through like a main vocal, and he'll guide you through 8 plugins, one after the other, where you would never do that. But you hear him and you see why he's putting them, and then he puts them on and off, and then puts them all on and off, and you're like, oh yeah, no, that sounds better. And he's very careful with what he does with each one. And it's obviously things that when we're used to the school of thought before, where we didn't have, I mean, back in the day, if you were plugging that many pieces of gear together for one vocal, I mean, it was kind of insane. It didn't happen a lot, maybe in some studios, but you definitely can't do that with every single track. But in the digital realm, it kind of takes a different thought process, and sometimes we're just using more plugins than we were on the analog realm, but you're doing a little bit with each one, and overall you get a very clean sound. I think, different approaches. There's different ways of doing things. So yeah, what else do I have with this mix? A lot of editing for sure. Let's see. I remember I was going through the vocals as well. I don't know if you guys use any serial compression. I'm not using a lot of parallel or any parallel compression in this case, but serial compression I am a big fan of, especially the vocals, where sometimes you want that compression to be heard, sometimes you want it to be more transparent, but there's nothing like doing it in steps if you want to get consistent level too. Just the way compressors are built. If you want to get consistent level, you have to tackle it in different stages where maybe the first compressor is going to tackle the loudest parts of the vocal, and then the next compressor can tackle, you know, everything and put it in a safe spot. And then in my, you know, see, for example, here I have one after the other. And let's see what they're doing.
First girl that I couldn't trust. No, I'm not lazy, I'm just starting to think that I'm headed that way. Well, paranoia, oh, paranoia.
So yeah, this compressor is not acting that much on the quiet parts, but then you get to the loud parts, and that's when you see him pick up and get the, you know, get the lead on things.
They say that I've gone crazy, but
That's really compressing. And then this one that's on top, this one's going to be acting more uniformly over the whole thing, and it's going to be a little bit more relaxed.
so I'm not lazy, I'm just starting to think that I'm headed that way.
It's going to be more consistent, just because the first one was really reacting a lot more to certain parts than others. This one's going to be a little bit more consistent and in the work that it does. And then finally you have another compressor on the vocal, you know, master channel, and this one shouldn't be doing that much. Let me see.
They say that I'm gone crazy, but Lord, I know just the voices in my mind. And
Yeah, not doing a whole lot, but it kind of helps, especially for the loudest parts. You know, it's going to be doing 1 dB, 2 at the most. And doing things in steps for me has really helped. Just, you know, you give each compressor something to do, and they're working on different things. They're working on different levels, and it ends up giving you a sound that's a little less exaggerated, a little bit smoother to hear, and you can get away with much better volume control. Even if it sounds exaggerated or not, you're not going to be that accurate with compressors if you do them, you know, if you do the job with one than with a few and multiple steps. Samuel, what's up? What's going on? Oh yeah, I've been mixing 22 years. I know. Yeah, old Pro Tools, you couldn't even get that many on one track. Yeah, so I've been using Pro Tools for 10 years. But I remember a few years before that when I wasn't using it, but I was looking at it, because I would see the recording engineers say what they were doing, and they would have, man, plugins nowadays are really affordable than back then, where they tell me, you see, they'd be like, you see this reverb, this was $200, you know. I think it was a Waves reverb, and didn't do much, and this one was like $500. And it was a different deal. And I remember we're always really worried about you know, resources, computer resources, and speeding things up. And there's a few things that I do still to keep resources together. If you can see, like, you know, when you download these tracks, it's gonna look more like this. It's gonna look something like this, where they're all gonna have all that. And this is one of those things that I learned eventually, where, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but you have all these voices and all this silence that's being played, all these audio files that are being played together, and if you have a session where, you know, even this, even if it's silent space, it's reading off a file, and it's reading off all these files simultaneously, and this kind of helps take care of some of the issues that could happen with that. You know, you also have to set up your sample rate. I mean, no, sorry, not your sample rate, but your hardware buffer. I remember I used to have a lot harder time running sessions, and little by little, I don't know, new generations appreciate this, but the amount of channels that you, and the amount of plugins and the amount of processing that you can do without your computer giving you much of a problem is pretty nice. Have you tried Nectar 3 on the vocal yet? Isotope has a little magic to it that I've been digging. I have not tried that, actually. I like things by Isotope, but I have not tried the Nectar 3. I've always been very traditional with vocal processing. I mean, not very traditional, but I have not had an opportunity to own more modern tools, you know, that have more of a design to them. Some of these, you know, they have specific frequencies chosen out. Some of them have, you know, all new functions. I typically go for the same kind of stuff. This vocal is recorded really well, actually. I'm really surprised, you know, you would really appreciate this. Usually when you get this amount of compression, you hear a lot of breaths, and this one, you don't hear that much. I even took out the breaths here for show, but even undoing this. I want to see how they recorded it because I have not yet. But yeah, I'm very traditionalist when it comes to vocal processing. Let's hear this.
I fell in love with the first girl that I couldn't trust. No, I'm not lazy, I'm just starting to think that I'm headed that way. Well, paranoia.
Yeah, I really don't hear the breaths. They're not a problem. I'm getting like a total like 12 dB of compression. You'd think the breath would be, 12 dB louder. He'd sound like me right now. I'm sick right now, so I can get away with it because I'm sick. So, but he shouldn't be sick when he's singing. You choose another day. But no, usually that's what happens when you get 12 dB of compression. You have to kind of bring down the breaths. Not in this case. I don't know how they recorded this. I really want to check the session out because I forget a few things. So I have parallel compression. I have some EQ. Always particular with each voice. Each voice has its own thing. And I always like this guy. And I believe I'm only saturating from 460 hertz and above. And that just kind of, and to a percentage, that just kind of resonated well with me that, I like this plugin a lot because you can select different bands and distort different bands in different ways. So I'm saturating the tape kind of emulation at a percentage for his vocal. So it's not too exaggerated, but that's kind of what gives it the grit that it has.
Paranoia did what we swore it never does.
If I turn the mix knob back to 100%, you'd be able to hear it.
This paranoia did what we swore it never does. They say that I've gone crazy, but Lord, I know.
So I'm gonna dial that back in. And yeah, it's one of those cool little tricks that I like. Saturation, I use it for all sorts of things. So I'll use it on the mix. I believe I'm using this guy on the main mix, and I have it right here. You might not hear it too much, but I can turn it off. All right, let's go to the chorus again.
Paranoia did what we swore it never does. They say that I'm gone crazy, but Lord, I know just the voices in my mind.
It turns up like the average volume in some way because it's adding a little bit of saturation. It's very smooth and it's more than anything on the sides because it's a mid-side processor too. So I'm putting the saturation on the sides. I use saturation for all sorts of things. So for vocals, it gives them a little bit of a grit. It sounds like you might, I try to emulate like if you were really overdriving some piece of gear, maybe a preamp or something. Obviously careful not to overdo it, but I use saturation for all sorts of things. That's why I like to have something fancy for that. But yeah, that's what I'm doing as far as that. As far as drums go, and I'm almost done with this mix. If there's anything else that I have to do, is pretty much automation at this point. And I find automation to be very important. I usually go into steps when I'm doing things, and we don't need this track anymore. You can go away. I usually go into steps when I'm mixing, and that's something that we talk a lot about in Mastermind. By people who are tuning in that haven't heard me talk about Mastermind, it's a program we're mixing this song in Mastermind this month. We do a new song each month, and we go through it in depth. Every week we have assignments, and there's a lot to learn. We go live. We have new skills. Also, we have pre-recorded videos of skills, but we also go through each skill each week that can help us tackle the mix. And we have a little community there. We help each other out. We pick a mix from any member once a week, and we create a detailed report, and we really talk about how to improve it, the strong parts, and just kind of focus on the things that make this mix the most challenging so we can all learn. And it's a really cool way to learn. But yeah, that's what we're doing this month. We're doing this song. And one of the things that I pointed out on the last transmission that I did for Mastermind, I think it was for the drums, I always have the same problem lately, and maybe I had it before, I just didn't know how to tackle it. And I did this routing that's kind of new. I'm going to solo the drums just for now. And I'm routing the overheads, the room mics, and the ride, and I believe the hi-hat as well. I wasn't sure about the hi-hat, but I'm doing it. And I'm routing those together, and I am passing them through a compressor. It's not doing a lot, but then through a multi-band compressor, which is the fun part that I wanted to get to. And that sounds pretty cool. I want to show it to you. Yeah, so let me yeah, so let me play just if I only solo these tracks, you're gonna be able to hear exactly what it's doing. Boom, boom. All right, let's do that. So that's with the processing, and I'm gonna put both on display so you can see them simultaneously, and then I'm gonna turn them off. So yeah, the compressor helps because it's making it a little more exciting. Obviously not too much, it's just like a dB of compression, but it's enough that I can really hear it. And I'm adding a lot of brightness. I'm not a lot, actually very little. You know, I'm adding brightness, but I'm also compressing in that range. And that's one of those things that I've lately learned that's very important, and I didn't value that much before. Drummers are not gonna play at a perfectly consistent level unless they are professionals and they've been doing this a lot. And even session drummers, sometimes there are going to be some hits that are going to be very loud for the mix. And leveling off the high end, especially for these specific microphones, it doesn't have to be the hi-hat every time. And you can go ahead and do that one separately too. If you don't want to boost the highs on that much, I understand that. But as far as the overheads and the rooms, that is something that I've been going towards a lot, and it's really been helping me. Also, because usually when I hear the drums, I do want a little bit more high end, but it's always a problem. The more high end you add, you know, it might sound pleasant, but you know, comes a crash, comes a certain part of the song, and it's not pleasant. So just having that little bit of control over that part. I used to use de-essers for a bit. They don't, I mean, the ones that I have don't sound as smooth as a multiband compressor because I can dial in the attack and release settings, and they're usually a bit smoother. They're a little, you know, they're a little bit longer. So yeah, I don't know. It just gives a good feel for it, and that's something that's been kind of helping me. Let me put drums back into perspective. Boom.
Paranoia was, paranoia did what we swore it never done. They say that I've gone crazy.
Kind of keeps that, you know, all those percussive elements at a certain range, frequency-wise, where you can hear them, and they never go much more beyond that, and they're a little bit more consistent. It's just kind of more pleasant to hear. It's one of those things that it's really a refresher for me. And you know, when I go on live, I try to talk about the things that I've been learning in the past few months that have helped me become a better mix engineer, and that's usually what I go for. There's a lot of things that I'll also show you that I learned from Pro Studio Live videos. I was a host at most of them, so I got to sit with a lot of these engineers and ask them questions, and you know, listen to them mix and listen to them do their work. So there's a lot of things that I learned there that I like to share, and a lot of other things are just we're all learning. You know, also there's a lot of people on the show that have a lot of experience, like Samuel, and but we're always learning, and that's what I try to do. Those past things from the previous mixes that are new to me that have really stood out is what I like to, you know, go ahead and share. But you know, thanks for everybody that tuned in. I'm gonna log out now. If there's any last questions, just let me know. You can always write us through inbox, but the link's on the description for Mastermind. Be sure to check it out. It's at a really good discount. It's never been at this price before. You still get the same results, although we did change the class structure a little bit. For more information, just check it on the link. And that's where you can download songs like these. So this is a song we're working on for December, and we have a live class each week. Yeah, just keep in touch. Make sure to visit the link. There's cool stuff for you. Good discount. It's at $54 a month. It's only going to be like that for a few months though. But if you get it now, you get locked down for that price. If you're interested in Mastermind, highly recommend it. You know, we've made all these videos for Pro Studio Live, and honestly, we don't know if they've helped you. You know, some of you guys write back and you're like, hey, you know, your videos helped and I'm doing this now. And that's really nice to hear. But there's a lot of people that you don't know, you know, they watch the video. You don't know if they want Grammys based on that, or if they traveled the world, or if they didn't get anywhere. With pre-recorded videos, even though they're a really good way to learn, you know, there's not that follow through. But I can tell you for sure, the students in Mastermind have improved. And that is because we look at their work and we are, you know, mixing songs together. And I log in every week and, you know, I chat with them and, you know, they ask questions. I can really see the progress, and you can really tell if what's helping, and you can give the people who are subscribers, you can give them something that's of value to them specifically. When you're doing classes, you're just kind of thinking of topics along with engineers, and you're like, you know what, let's see what happens. But when you're doing things like mastermind, you're focusing specifically on what the students' needs are, which I think is the best, most efficient way to teach. So we're always going to gravitate to where we see most results. Anyway, see you guys soon. Take care. Thanks for tuning in.